Good morning and welcome to Story Time with One Lonely Farmer. Yeah, story time. So I'm going to say a couple of things before I get into this story. One, congratulations, Zach, for passing 200,000 subscribers. Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed how fast you grew. Well, not really amazed as to how fast you grew. You do put out some pretty decent content. Yeah, so congratulations to you. So this story time is prompted by the Stony Ridge Farmer, another guy who has just gone crazy fast. He's growing. He's at 136,000 subscribers now, doing a good job. Well, he had a couple of kids go running off the road, his private road, and into the ditch, and they had got their little Honda Civic stuck, and I guess someone else came out, one of their buddies, came out and pulled their little asses out of the ditch, which, happens from time to time. I swear somebody's worn this hat other than myself. I mean, I don't have a bucket head, but I don't have a pin head either. Yeah, that's better. Somebody's messed with it. So anyway, this brings me to the story time. The story time that I was not a part of, but it reminds me of what happened to Zach. So, years ago, well, let's put it this way. Many years ago, when my grandfather was still alive, grandfather Pouch, my mother's father, and my grandmother Pouch is still alive, but she's no longer living in the house. She's in a nursing home, which just, hey, not a preferred place for me to go and die, but that's where my uncle and aunt have decided that my uncle and my aunts, I know my mother didn't really want her in there, have decided that's where she's going to go, or where she's been for several years, and I do miss her. I used to go over and see her more often than I can get out, like 6 hours away now. But anyways, here's the story time. So these kids were drinking pretty heavily, and if you know where my grandparents lived, it was over by the high school, by Del Val High School. Timmy Cornpicker may remember this. This was after I graduated from high school, but it was after I graduated from high school. I did not know these kids. They were still older than me. They weren't kids at the time. They were young adults, but drinking and driving was still in their cards. So they come flying around a corner, going, I guess, towards the school. There's an airport road there. It's called Airport Road, Sky Manor Airport, whereas Teresa calls it Sky Manor. Sky Manor Airport Road is there. They come flying around a corner, and which way were they going now? Yeah, they did. They kind of got out of control up at the top, and they swerved, and they overcorrected. And in front of my grandparents' house, or where my mother was raised, there's this stone wall, and it's thick. I mean, it'll put you in mind of, had rocks that stuck up along the top, and it's thick. It's probably 1.5 to 2 feet thick, and it is concrete and with stone, and it looks really nice. It looks really kind of nice. So anyways, these kids hit this thing, glance off of it, go into the ditch, and I don't know. I think the one kid got ejected from the car, but didn't die. Anyways, my grandparents heard this, and my grandfather, he gets up, and he goes outside, and he sees this car with a flashlight. He sees this car up on its side, and there's a couple of people around it, and I guess he went in and called the police to come, because obviously this car wasn't just going to get flipped up on its wheels and driven away. Like the Stony Ridge Farmers, they just pulled it out of the ditch, and I'm sure the kids had a bent-up muffler, catalytic converter, maybe even exhaust broken. They drove away, but big deal. They never did show how they started it up. So after my grandfather gets the police involved, he goes out and to see if they're okay or whatnot. This was before cell phones were a big thing. They were car phones at that time. And he's talking to this kid. He's like, "Oh, yeah, man, I was going too fast, and, I hit the ditch and went into the wall and back into the ditch again. Didn't damage the wall. But my grandfather said he heard this crunching noise every time the kid was take a step. And he asked him, "Are you okay?" He said, "Oh yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right." And he takes a flashlight and he shines it down at his feet. And here his ankles, his legs are broke off at the ankle, right? Broke. Both feet are literally just broke off. And every time he would take a step, it was the sound of the bones grinding against one another. So he says, "You're hurt. You got to sit down, get down, lay down." "No, no, I'm fine. I'm fine." He's going to go over to his friends that are going to help flip this car back over, which they couldn't. And he's like, oh my God. So this kid, he was so drunk or high or whatever that he didn't even feel that his ankles were both broke off. And, you know, there's two bones that connect in there. And it's like, oh my God. So I guess my grandfather was pretty damn tough. He'd seen a lot in his day. He was busted up back in the 30s in a car, late 30s, early 40s maybe, in a car, a railroad. No, what did he do? Was he on a motorcycle? He was in a car. He had gotten into a car wreck. My great uncle, Roy Pouch, he was a race car driver. He's the father of Billy Pouch, the race car driver. And Billy Pouch, the junior, he's a race car driver. It's just racing's in their blood, and that's what they do, dirt track. And they do minis or whatever, these little freaking things with big motors in them that go like hell. But anyways, he was telling me about the time that he had gotten into this car wreck and damn near got killed. And this was my grandfather. He was in bad shape, and they had to bale hay. And back in those days, you had wire balers. Back in the 30s, you know, in the early 40s, you still had wire balers. New Holland hadn't developed the Nodder baler yet. And there was, I guess, blocks of wood you would drop in, and then you would feed these wires through. Well, my grandfather was damaged. He couldn't do nothing but tie wires. So, anyways, my uncle, who was my great uncle Roy, who was a lot younger, and my grandfather, I think he's like 11 or 14 years younger. He's quite a bit younger than him. He was driving the tractor as a kid. He was maybe 14 years old or, you know, something 12 to 14 years old. And he wasn't going fast enough. And my grandfather, he says, I'll never forget, he says, when, you know, and it put me in mind of the movie Dodgeball. If you could dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. And he starts throwing wrenches. Well, my grandfather was tying wires, and he was doing it himself because after being busted up with broken hip or legs or whatever the hell he had problems with, he would put the block of wood in, stick the wires through, and then I guess he would reach over and pull the wires through and back around, because it's normally a two-man job on something like that. Those old balers, and what I was told was that I think it was a McCormick Deering baler where the header, this thing was so big that you had to take the header off, the pickup header off, and that came separately down the road behind you, and the tractor had steel wheels on it or whatnot. At least this is what he was telling me. I wasn't there. I'm just a young buck, as you'd say. So anyway, so the cops show up. They get this kid laying down. Of course, they're doing field sobriety tests on the other kids, you know, the other guys, and I guess the ones that were going to come and flip this car up, they bolted when they found out that the cops were coming, and it was just this kid with the busted legs, and I think there was 3 of them involved in the whole thing. At least this is how it was told to me. And they called the ambulance, and I guess it went through his skin. His bones had gone poked through. I've shot deer's legs off, and that shit doesn't bother me, but to hear about a human being walking around on his bones, just the scraping, I guess, was the bones and the shoes on the pavement, and he just, pretty bad. He must have been pretty fucked up. So anyways, they took him, the ambulance shows up, you know, the cop gets him on the ground, because he wasn't going to sit down with my grandfather. He wasn't, you know, and I don't know whatever happened to him. I mean, this was like, my grandfather was telling us this story, and he didn't talk. I will tell you this. My grandfather, my mother's father, he would sit in a chair and say literally nothing for an entire, evening until it was, time to go home. Well, it was good to see you. And then you'd leave. And that scared me as a kid. I mean, I can remember being terrified of my grandfather because he didn't talk at all. Ever. 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 So, but I remember him telling this story, and I was fascinated because, I mean, I'm an adult. I'm married. And I'm listening to my grandfather, whom, up until that point, I don't think I could tell you what his voice sounded like, Talk about messed up, It's like, wow. And after, I think it had to be after I was graduated high school. Man, Timmy Cornpicker will watch this and he'll let me know. He'll probably remember this because that kid's he remembers weird stuff. So anyway, there you go. These, I hope they healed up, but I guess his bones were probably the least of his worries when it came down to it. But could you imagine walking in dirt and stuff and the bone marrow and the fucking dirt getting packed up into the hollow parts of your bones as you're walking into the... That's just wrong. That's just not cool. So anyways, I guess that's my story time. But my grandfather, he was I remember just being scared of him. And until I bought my Model T Ford car, I really had very little to do with my grandfather because he was scary. It was scary to be around him because he just didn't say anything. You can't read minds, at least I couldn't. And I remember being little kid, running around. See, my mom used to go over and help milk cows, help him milk cows. My grandfather had a heart attack, and before he had the heart attack, my mom and us kids would go, particularly me, Holly and Wendy were just a little bit older, and they would stay at the home farm with Dad milking cows there, and my mom would go over and see to it that my grandfather was, doing okay. And after he had his heart attack, my uncle came back from Minnesota, and was on the farm then from there on out. But I got a lot of VHS video of, and I may have some VHS video of my grandfather getting into the Model T Ford. He died in 92. So, I'm actually thinking that possibly it was before I graduated high school because after I graduated in October of 91 and he died in July of 92, and I bought that car in the fall of 91 and had it running in the spring of 92, and he died July 10th, 1992. It's amazing how long ago that's been. And so anyway, I guess I hope you enjoy the story. On a side note, the 6200 is coming apart today. I think I've figured out what the problem is. I think I have. I think I have. I'm pretty sure I may have figured out the problem. But, hey, until I get to that point, let's just find out later today. So, thanks for watching. Look forward to the 6200, and I will explain in that video as to what is going on with it and why it is back there. I did not purchase this tractor. I'm repairing it for the fellow that I repaired it for first. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious.